I spent a great deal of my life not as a believer in faith. For me, my religion was the belief in that you can figure everything out and that the world was rational and that you can deconstruct it and make sense of it. I became not only an ER doc, but I was a head of a hospital, chief of staff, and head of an emergency department. It came an intersection where I started seeing changes in disease based upon the environment. And I began to notice changes in our environment in general. There's no elms on Elm Street anymore. There's no chestnuts on Chestnut Street. There's no caribou in Caribou, Maine. I could go on and on. The changes have actually been profound. My wife asked me a question that was going to change my life. And she said, "What do you think the biggest problem in the world is?" I thought for a moment and I said, "The world is dying." And my question was, if there's evil and if the world's dying, what is there on the other side? What is there to counter all this? And I began a search to try to make sense out of the world. I read the book of Matthew one day. I picked the book up and I read through it, and everything in life changed for me. Everything changed. One verse that really struck me was in Matthew chapter 7. And that's where Christ says, "Judge not, lest ye be judged." We all want to take the speck out of somebody else's eye while we have a log in our own. I realized that things were really bad environmentally speaking, and I thought I was really good about it, and I listened to this verse, and so we went about becoming downwardly mobile. And we went from a doctor-sized life to, we moved into a house the size of our garage. We cut our electric bill down, and we cut our fossil fuel down, and we cut a lot of things down. I began this process of learning and this walk and this journey with Christ. We began to keep the Sabbath. We began to think about what does it mean to serve God. And I began to think that it was the only answer actually to the environmental problems that we have. That only through our faith can we actually fix the problems. We got involved in a church, and that church did wonderful stuff. And they took care of families and everything, and they gave people hope. But if you talked about the environment, it was almost as if you were talking about something that was heretical. How many of you have heard Christian and tree hugger in the same sentence? How many of you have had a sermon on trees? But they occur 1,000 times in the Bible. It's the symbol of the Lord. And the first psalm begins by describing that a righteous person is like a tree. The Bible is a story about God relating to us through the made world. There's this tremendous energy and this journey that you can go on when you get involved in this type of work. Environmentalism is kind of the only activity that we can carry out where we worship God all the time. And we're not going to get thanked for it. In other words, if you live that mindful life, if you begin to live a little more simply and a little bit more humbly or meekly, as Christ would put it, you begin to grow as a spiritual human being. The last page of the Bible, Revelation 22, God looks at a tree. That tree is not just a regular tree, it's a big tree. Of course, God's tree, it's the tree of life. And under this tree, we're told that in the shade of it, all the nations will finally find peace.